The BYU Cougars and TCU Horned Frogs are set to renew acquaintances after their longtime Mountain West rivalry went on hiatus, with the Cougars going independent and obviously the Horned Frogs joining the Big 12. Well, now they're back together in the Big 12. They're going to play for the first time tomorrow afternoon in Fort Worth. What do we make of that matchup? And also, we'll catch up with both Marcus McKenzie and Ian Firtzgerald to talk about their roles for BYU going into this game. All ahead on today's show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports, and today's show is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people right for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, BYU, TCU, the renewal of what was a pretty wild rivalry. Those of you of a certain age, now, obviously, a number of you probably have come of age in the past 12 seasons or so. The BYU's been an independent football program. But those of you like myself who grew up in the era of the WAC and the Mountain West will remember TCU and BYU, and will remember LaDainian Tomlinson, Casey Pahal, Andy Dalton, some of the great players, Jeremy Curley, man, who else am I thinking of? Just some of the great TCU Horned Frog legends of yesteryear who went head-to-head with BYU. Let's say that BYU didn't have any legends in those games. John Beck, Max Hall, Kyle Van Noy. Like there were some very, very good football players who are still playing football to this day in certain circumstances in the professional ranks, who are part of these matchups when the Horned Frogs and the Cougars once upon a time played annually as members of the Mountain West Conference. I can vividly remember sitting in the West stands as a young buck it was probably the mid to late 90s. And TCU had come in. It was a WAC match. I have to look back probably the year. It was the mid to late 90s. And LaDainian Tomlinson was playing for TCU at the time. And my grandpa, who I was at that game with, says, hey, that guy, he's going to be the next great running back to come out of college football and go to the NFL. And all of us know what LaDainian Tomlinson, LT, went on to do for the San Diego Chargers. And it's been a really, really fun rivalry that has been on hiatus for far too long, it feels like. And now that BYU is a member of the Big 12 Conference, it's very exciting to think about the renewal of this. Is it going to have the same hostility that it once had? TBD, obviously, because you go down there and win a game potentially as early as tomorrow down there in Fort Worth. That's obviously going to cause TCU fans to be like, oh, here comes BYU again. The other thing is, Senor Froggy Pants, as I like to call him, Gary Patterson's no longer roaming the sidelines for TCU. He had an incredible run down there at TCU. Why I call him Senor Froggy Pants is he was constantly adjusting his pants. Any of you who watched Gary Patterson know exactly what I'm talking about. And he was the guy that put a BYU uniform and helmet on their tackling dummy to really engender like, hey, we don't like BYU. And they made it personal. And it made for a really, really fun series. And it didn't hurt that both of those teams, speaking of BYU and TCU, in the run that they had in the Mountain West together, were very, very good top 25 caliber programs. Obviously, TCU went on to win a Rose Bowl during that run, had an absolutely incredible run that outclassed what BYU was doing at the time, but it didn't mean that BYU wasn't doing their part. And obviously, the only time that BYU's had college game day on campus was that 2009 matchup, if I recall correctly, with TCU coming in here, and the Horned Frogs just thoroughly whipped BYU in that game. But it's just one of those things. This rivalry is going to be really, really fun. Do I have really any good feel for tomorrow's game? I feel like I've got a feel for it, but with Josh Hoover making his first career start in place of the injured Chandler Morris for TCU, it adds a whole new wrinkle to this game. Now, I have seen the line from different betting sites, and of course, FanDuel is our official partner here on the Locked On Podcast. Now, we're going to appreciate their patronage, but I've seen it get as low as 3 points for BYU in this game. I'm taking BYU in whatever points you want to. So BYU +3 in certain circumstances. I know it opened like a 6 and then moved down to 5, so I have 5.5, but I think BYU should be confident going into Fort Worth tomorrow. You guys probably heard the conversation. If you didn't, I encourage you to go back and check it out. Our weekly conversation with Connor Pay. He essentially cut out the TCU fan base for being essentially a fake fan base or a fickle bandwagon type fan base that when they're good, like the run the TCU had last year, making that run to the national title game, people are all on board. They're selling that place out, but they're dumping tickets this week at 3-3. And we had Steven Simcox, our crossover edition of the podcast yesterday, talking about this. And he talked about the fact that TCU fans are kind of checking out on this football program. So there's a huge opportunity for BYU to go into this game against the Horned Frogs and go down there and get a win and be very, very big win. Now, some of you probably stayed up like I did last night and watched the incredible final minute and change of West Virginia Houston. Houston stole something I thought BYU might be able to get, and that is having become the first newcomer to the conference, one of the 4 newcomers to the conference to beat a quote-unquote legacy program in the Big 12. Obviously, that Hail Mary that Houston got with no time remaining, absolutely phenomenal play. But I thought that BYU would have a great chance to become that team, the first team to get that legacy win. But alas, it is going to reside with the Houston Cougars rather than the BYU Cougars. So big opportunity, obviously. I think the biggest thing for BYU is you need to find some keys to the game, I guess, if you want me to break that down real quick, is BYU needs to continue to do what they were doing early on against Cincinnati. Any of you who rewatched that game or were watching intently saw a better product in terms of blocking for BYU on the offensive line. Aaron Roderick, BYU's offensive coordinator, said that they treated the bye week like going back to training camp and really just got after it and broke things down and got guys working on the basics, especially when it comes to the run game. So I'm expecting an improved product in that regard. The other thing I'm expecting is for BYU to go down there brimming with confidence, thinking, okay, you know what? We haven't played a perfect football game yet this year. Let's go down and prove ourselves, get ourselves to 5-1 on the cusp of bowl eligibility, and really start making some noise in the Big 12 with a win like that. That would be the ideal scenario, it feels like, for BYU in this circumstance. Now, the defense is going to have to prove themselves. This is a very, very good running team in TCU, and BYU in their last 2 games in particular has given up more than 200 yards rushing to both the Kansas Jayhawks and the Cincinnati Bearcats. You cannot afford to let that happen. If BYU holds TCU, I think under like 100 and if they under 100 yards, I think would be a very clear win for BYU. Under 150 yards given up rushing, and obviously I think if BYU rushes for 100 or more, I think BYU stands a very, very good chance of going to TCU and getting that victory. I'm picking BYU to win this week, folks. I've got a good feeling. Many of you who are longtime everydayers with us here on the podcast know that I'm very much a gut feeling guy. I've got a very good feeling just about BYU going into this. Like I said, I don't necessarily have the stats to back it up, and I rarely do. I'm very much kind of how I feel about games. That's how I go about it. I got a good feeling for BYU this week. I think they get to 5-1. They get the first ever Big 12 road win in Fort Worth. They moved to 2-1 in the conference. And at that point, you're looking at Texas Tech a week from tomorrow in that homecoming game at 5:00 and thinking, okay, can we get to bowl eligibility to celebrate homecoming with a bunch of Big 12 big wigs on campus? I'm expecting Brett Yormark as well as a number of the Big 12 head honchos, I guess, for lack of a better term, that'll be out here. They're calling it they're doing for every new school in the conference. They're doing for Cincinnati, for Houston, for UCF and BYU. It just so happens that next week will be BYU's chance. If you get the win against TCU, you could really make a statement by beating Texas Tech on your home turf at LaVell Edwards Stadium, get to 3-1 in the conference, be among the upper echelon of the conference. And oh, by the way, already have clinched bowl eligibility, and who knows what you might be able to be capable of at that point. The other underrated point about this is that Jay Hill also talked earlier this week about how big it is for BYU. The fact that they're playing 3 straight Texas teams over the next 3 weeks, 2 of them being played in the Lone Star State. Obviously, this first game against TCU in Fort Worth, and then in 2 weeks' time, they're in Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns. Just in terms of the big opportunity for BYU on the recruiting trail, they want to get more guys out of Texas. They made a concerted effort to bring more talent from the Lone Star State to Utah. Well, playing your games down there and obviously having a good performance against those teams will go a long way to helping you build that momentum. And like I said, this is a big matchup for BYU because in many ways you win this game and then it just feels like it's a mere formality of what you could accomplish this season, and especially with bowl eligibility. You lose this game against a so-called lesser than opponent who is struggling right now, then it makes things really kind of, you shake the boggle box again. You're like, okay, what's ultimately going to pan out here for BYU? So I said earlier this week, this feels like in some ways a must-win scenario for BYU. I still very much feel that way. It's going to be very important for BYU, I feel like, to go to Fort Worth, establish themselves early in this game, control it, and obviously get out of there with a win. I'm expecting a very strong contingent of BYU fans, despite the TCU's best efforts to kind of ace BYU fans from getting into Amon G Carter Stadium. Well, TCU fans are dumping tickets at an astronomical rate, if any of you have checked the secondary market. So it's a big opportunity for thousands of you. I'm expecting thousands of BYU fans to invade Fort Worth, and I'm expecting, as I say all the time, every game a home game for BYU, and it should be a fun one tomorrow afternoon. Well, two guys who will play a role in that game are two guys I had a chance to catch up with during a media availability earlier this week. We'll get to those conversations next. One with Marcus McKenzie on the defensive side of the football, also special teams, just absolute star for BYU right now. And then Ian Firtzgerald for the BYU offensive line, seeing an uptick in his playing time of late. We'll talk with both of those guys as we continue on here momentarily with Locked On Cougars. Now, a quick word on our friends over at LinkedIn. We've been talking about LinkedIn a lot over the past little bit. The best part is about LinkedIn is these days, every new potential hire for your small business, if you're a hiring manager or you're the owner, it feels like a high stakes wager. It really, you want to be 100% certain you have the best access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you guys need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team. More importantly, do it faster and for free. All you got to do is go on to LinkedIn Jobs, set up the job profile that you're looking to hire for, then add that job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your profile to help spread the word that you're hiring. They've got simple tools like screening questions, making it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience. So you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and ultimately hire. And it's why small businesses are rating LinkedIn Jobs right now #1 in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. So get started today with LinkedIn Jobs. It helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post that job for free. Once again, terms and conditions apply. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at UCCU. They have a new thing called Learn and Earn. They are featuring right now. What it is, they're paying your family to learn about financial topics. All of us need to be smarter about money. We all get that. But the best part about what UCCU is offering is inside their mobile banking app, you can go in and get these bite-sized lessons on different financial topics. The best part is you complete a lesson, you earn points to be accrued, and you can be redeemed for gift cards to a number of different retailers, Nike, Walmart, Sephora, and a gazillion others, it feels like, in so many different ways. The best part is with it being on the app, you can do it anywhere. It's mobile, anytime, anywhere. You can sit down and do it, and it's got age-appropriate content for every member of the family. So get started today. You can track all your progress just inside the app there and do it and compete really head-to-head with your family members and collect those points and obviously get those gift cards as well. It's all courtesy of UCCU, of course, your friends, part of their Be Money Smart Youth Banking program. It's an award-winning program helping kids, teens, and adults get smarter about their finances together. That's the whole goal. It's all courtesy of UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars a part of your day. Thank you for making it a part of your routine. Thank you for being everydayers. Obviously, a number of you out there, thousands of you, I guess I should say, are listening to us every day. And I'm not going to lie, it's stunning to me, some of the people that I have learned in the recent past who listen to this show. I got to give a big shout out to Ty Mattingly, a former BYU legend in his own right, a great player during his heyday with the Cougars. And Ty actually stopped me at practice earlier this week and said, Jake, I watch your podcast all the time. And I was like, I was like, what? Hold on. We need to slow down real quick. Ty Mattingly, like, he played for BYU during the heyday in the 1980s, was a great player in his own right. I actually know him through some high school football connections, my younger brother, etc. But guys, like, if Ty Mattingly's watching this show, it just makes me like, oh geez, I gotta be a little smarter and a little better about how to do my work. But it's awesome, and I appreciate each and every one of you for your support of the podcast. And it allows me, honestly, to bring what we're going to do right now is the chance to get out to practice, talk with these BYU football players, get them one-on-one, obviously a conversation with them, and let you guys get to know them a little bit better as well. So let's start off with Marcus McKenzie. Now, Marcus is a special team star right now for BYU. Absolutely phenomenal. His ability to get down the field, make open field tackles on punt coverage is absolutely the stuff of legend right now for BYU. We had a great chat about that. We also talked about him continuing to emerge in the defensive secondary, playing for Gennaro Guilford as well as Jay Hill in this BYU defense. So without further ado, here you go. Marcus McKenzie with myself earlier this week, right here on Locked On Cougars.
You were a cornerback, obviously, on the roster, but you become like the special teams ace. Is this something that you did like growing up, or is this something that's a new addition to your repertoire?
I would definitely say it's new.
Okay.
You know, they put me on special teams on kickoff and everything in high school, but Coach Pop gave me a chance to go down and make a play, so.
What does it all entail to be able to go do what you've done so far on special teams?
It's just an awesome opportunity. I mean, I got great teammates that set me up perfectly. Like the punt, if the punt wasn't in the air for 10 seconds, you know, I wouldn't get down there in time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. And Jacob Bourne is right there with me down there. So, yeah.
Well, and here, as gunners, you guys have a very important job, obviously, to go down there and force the return to where you guys want them to go. Is there strategy to all that, obviously, going into each punt, or do they tell you, hey, we're just general and going into game, we're going this direction?
Oh, there's a lot of strategy behind it, for sure. Yeah, lots of assessment from what we saw on film to what we were going to do this game and certain scenarios. So it's really planned out.
So how important is it that Ryan has that monster leg and really
it helped teams when Ryan, some people don't even notice, but when Ryan might not put it in the place he wants to put it, you know, teams wish they could have, you know, the bad punt Ryan has. So
sure.
You know, he's amazing.
So what is your 40 time?
I haven't taken official 40 actually.
Okay, so you don't know.
I don't know yet. Yeah, I'll find out though. Eventually.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people look at it like he's able to get down the field so fast, but it does help with the hang time, obviously. That goes into all that. Now, what's it been like working with Coach Pop and special teams and all that?
I mean, not just Coach Pop, but everyone. They have an intensity, and especially Coach Pop. You know, he wants perfection, and he makes us realize how important special teams is and starting field position. It really. What it comes down to is that's what wins you the game is starting field position, or gives you great odds to win the game. So
average starting field position is a huge stat. That and turnover margin, it feels like, are two of the crazy things. Now you're also playing on defense. What's it been like working with Coach Guilford?
So awesome, and my teammates. You know, they're able to be a great example to me, and when I'm getting the reps, they're able to coach me. All of them, Coach Guilford and all the corners. You know, they're super awesome.
I've talked with Eddie in particular, and he talked about the fact that he's played in this defense for Jay Hill, and him coming down. He said, I've taken on this role of being able to teach guys what they need to do in that. Has he done that with you?
Oh yeah, he still is. You know, I learn something from him every day, honestly.
Okay. Like what do you mean like every day? Like what's he pointing out? Like just different tips?
So from like small things to things that I keep doing now that's helped my game.
Okay.
You know, it's like just little tips and what will put me in the best position. You know?
Is it the same thing with Camden?
Oh yeah, all like it's awesome. Like the environment here is just amazing.
And there's pretty healthy competition with all you guys because you're obviously looking for playing time. But is that part of the reason you've taken on your special teams roles, like just a chance to get on the field and show what you're capable of?
Well, I'm just glad Coach Pop gave me the chance.
Okay.
For sure. But yeah, I just keep working, keep learning the technique, and hope to get that opportunity on defense.
What do you like most about this defense?
The pressure.
Okay.
And how Coach trusts the corners to play man, and we could get pressure to the football. I like that a lot.
It's something that BYU hasn't had a lot in their history, obviously, is having man coverage. Is that it's changing, obviously.
Yeah.
Is that something you prefer? You were playing defense while growing up, if I'm not mistaken. Your brothers,
I like man a lot better. Well, it depends on situation, but definitely man is fun to play.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, and you and your brother, obviously, your brother's serving a mission right now. You guys had probably a lot of epic backyard battles, I'm guessing.
For sure. It was good competition. I mean, not having him for this time is definitely hard because all our lives we've just had someone we can compete with that's really close to our skill level the whole time. So, yeah.
Did that help bring the best out of both of you guys?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's just iron sharpens iron.
Okay. That's awesome. Last thing for me is your dad is a legend around these parts. He played running back, obviously, here. What did he tell you about BYU before getting here versus what you've experienced so far?
What he told me was you just have to experience it. There's no words that can really tell you. He said it's a great experience, but it's so hard to explain. You just have to go through it. And I know what it means now that I'm here. It's so hard to – I know what it means, like, to be here now.
What does it mean?
To be a Cougar?
To you personally, I guess.
To me personally? Okay, I guess if I try to sum it up, it's just setting me up to be an amazing father, amazing football player, setting me up for the rest of my life. The coaches around here are awesome.
There you go, Marcus McKenzie, BYU cornerback. You heard him talk about the fact he didn't really play special teams all that much growing up, and he just kind of adapted to the role. But folks, I've said it before on this podcast, and I'll say it again. If he continues to excel in that role alone, just as the special teams ace that he is, he can make the NFL in that role alone. Matthew Slater is going to go down as one of the great special teams players of all time. He's played, I think, his entire career, if I'm not mistaken, for the New England Patriots. If you don't know the name Matthew Slater, I don't blame you, but he's a special team savant. He is absolutely legendary for his special teams ability. There are guys who can make a healthy living making NFL money by being special teams players. The best part about Marcus is he's just scratching the surface of what he can do as a defensive back for BYU. So the special teams element is just an added bonus to what he can bring to the table. And obviously his brother Dominique, once he gets home from his mission, will be adding to BYU on offense. And obviously having those two playing together will be really, really fun as well. So big thanks to Marcus for taking the time to join us here. And now it's time to flip over to the offensive side of the football. A guy similar to Marcus who is seeing more and more reps as the season goes along is Ian Firtzgerald. Obviously a former right tackle from Missouri State, came to BYU as a grad transfer during the winter, was part of BYU from essentially January on, went through spring ball and the like. And the question was, would he be able to lock down a starting position for BYU? Well, to start the year, it did not work out that way. Then Waylon Lapuaho got injured against Kansas, and they inserted Fitzgerald into the lineup. I think he's acquitted himself pretty well, all things considered, as he also makes a position change to the interior of BYU's offensive line. We talked about that position change, what's different playing tackle versus guard, and a whole lot more. And of course, we'll get to that right now, right here on Locked On Cougars.
Ian, obviously you were in addition to this roster as a grad transfer coming in from Missouri State. What's the experience been like so far for you?
Overall, it's been a huge growing experience, bringing in a bunch of transfers from all over the United States. Getting this team ready to go in fall camp and spring ball when I came in, I'm really happy with how we've come together, and that was the biggest thing, was growing as a team, becoming one.
If I'm not mistaken, you played right tackle your entire time at Missouri State, and you've moved inside here at BYU. How big of an adaptation has been that for you?
It's been a change for sure, a learning curve for sure. Okay. I played the last 4 years at right tackle, a little bit of left tackle for one of those years.
Okay.
But playing inside, especially in a new system altogether, it's all been new. I've had my work cut out for me.
I've had people who've played tackle tell me you learn to operate in space as a tackle.
Yeah, for sure.
Outside, and then when you go inside, you're boxed in essentially.
For sure.
Am I right in that?
Yeah, pretty accurate. I would say the biggest difference aside from space is speed.
Okay.
Because I always worry about, on the edge, you got some pretty fast guys coming off the edge. So I always thought, get to my spot before they do.
Okay.
At guard, you don't need to really worry about leaving too fast, because then you're leaving the center at jeopardy, and I've learned that the hard way.
Okay. Well, we've seen you get more playing time as the season progressed here. How has that been? Obviously, I know you're a kid that came here expecting to play quite a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah. I get in where I fit in. That's my whole mentality. I'm going to be a guy that's available at any point in time. I've been playing all 4 positions across the line, left tackle all the way to right tackle. So I'm here to play wherever I fit in.
What's it been like adapting to working with guys like Connor and Paul and these guys on the interior?
Paul's been a great asset. Connor's, of course, since Connor was here when I got here first in January, and then meeting Paul, bringing Paul into the system a bit. Those are 2 great additions and really advance your football knowledge, because those guys, they love it. They breathe football. So just being around them daily, they rub off on you.
Now, Kingsley's a guy that you've operated alongside there at left. People talk about him being a top-shelf NFL draft prospect.
Yeah.
You see that from him in your eyes?
Yeah, for sure. That's another guy that's just about his business. He comes in, treats it like a job. He's very professional about everything he does, and it's fun to play with him.
Now, you guys are headed to TCU this week. Kicks off a 3-game swing of playing Texas teams. What are your expectations from the Horned Frogs?
From the Horned Frogs, that's a very talented group up front. We've been learning them all week, and especially with the bye week, we've had extra time to get on them. Not expecting an easy game by no means, so we got our work cut out for us, but we're excited to get after it.
Did you watch them at all last year in that run to the national title game?
Yeah, a little bit. I think everyone had to.
Sure.
That was the last team playing. So unintentionally, I watched them a little bit.
Are they any different last year versus this year from what you've seen on film at all?
For sure. They had a lot of guys, go to the league last year. A lot of people left. It's a new team up front.
They've got a couple returners that we've been able to get film off of from last year, but we're not going into this thinking we're playing last year's TCU. We're completely focused on what they've put on tape this year.
Tell me about the bye week. How was your bye week? What'd you do?
My bye week was pretty good. I adventured out to some hot springs down in southern Utah.
Okay.
That was my first time with that. That's what I did. Got out of town a little bit, relaxed.
Exploring the state a little bit then.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, very cool. Ian, thanks so much for the time.
Yeah, of course.
There you go, Ian Firtzgerald, and a big thank you to him. And once again, a big thank you to Marcus McKenzie for taking the time. Big thank you to BYU Sports Information, obviously, for arranging those interviews. And it's always fun to get to know these young men. You can tell that they are guys who are appreciative of being at BYU. You heard Marcus talk about the fact that the BYU experience is unlike anything. He just had a hard time really verbalizing. We talked about the fact he's like, just set me up for everything I want to do in my future. And I think Ian Firtzgerald, in many respects, feels that same way. And I appreciate these guys being willing to tell their stories. And the hope is that Ian will continue to improve, obviously, in his role as a guard for BYU in this lineup. Here's the thing. He very easily, if the tackle position continues to be an unstable position, especially at right tackle for BYU, it would not surprise me that if it continues to be a problem for BYU. And what I mean by problem is if Caleb Etienne, he wasn't working out, they inserted Brady Keim in there. And if for whatever reason, I think Braden Keim doesn't work out, they very well might say, okay, Ian, you played right tackle at the FCS level. Let's get you out there on the edge and see what you're capable of doing. He's got the experience there, obviously, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But good to have him just kind of embracing everything about being at BYU. He's getting a graduate degree. He may not be playing probably as much as he in his heart of hearts wants to be playing, but you heard him talk about the fact, I just want to be playing high level football, and he's getting that opportunity to do that with the BYU football program. So big thank you once again to both of those young men for taking the time to join us here on the show. We are going to wrap things up coming up here in just a moment. A couple of thoughts on the weekend ahead for BYU sports that we will get to. But before we do that, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel's been working with us for months. They are a big part of the network, of this channel, of the college channel for Locked On. The best part about it is FanDuel wants to help you guys out. Snap into action with this NFL season with FanDuel's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Simple as that. You bet $5, you get $200 in bonus bets back, and it's win or lose. Even if you lose the $5, they're still giving you the $200 to play around with. That's the best part about it. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is literally no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, really simple, straightforward. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and many, many more. So take advantage now. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season in style with our friends at FanDuel. They are official partner of the NFL. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars a part of your day. Thank you for joining us all week long. It's been fun to be back in the saddle this week. By the way, big thank you to all of you once again for the well wishes for my son. He is thriving so far that he's been home. So thank you for the support in that regard. It's been awesome to hear some of the responses. Now, some of you have asked how you can donate to the show. And not just say donating to my son. If you guys do sincerely want to donate to the show and help us do this, and obviously put it into a fund to do other things right here on the podcast, just reach out to me via email, lockedonbyu@gmail.com. I'll be the easiest way. I don't necessarily want to throw out my Venmo, I guess my username right now over air, because I'm wary. I don't know. I'm also a guy who's very, you can ask my wife about this, any of my family members that know me well. I'm very reticent to say I want people's, I don't know how to say it. Charity is probably the wrong term. I just don't want to feel like I'm a burden on other people. I guess the one thing about this, I like to work for my money. That's probably another thing about it. But if you guys do want to be a bigger part of the show, and it is a big part of it, obviously, every show out there is asking for donations, but it's a crazy time out there. If you have the means to do so and you want to be a bigger part of the show and want to help contribute to it, just reach out to me via email. I'll give you my Venmo tag and my Venmo username, and we can go from there. But I really do appreciate there's 5 I can think of at the top of my head who have reached out via various means to ask me about that. They want me to throw it up here on YouTube on the screen or put it out there. Right now I'm I'm not 100% comfortable doing that quite yet. Maybe I will. I'll think about it. But if you do want to reach out, would love to have you guys help support the show. And thank you once again for all the support. It's been, you guys created a really, really cool community here. And it's really fun to have hundreds, if not thousands of you who are just a part of this. And we're continuing to grow, obviously, more and more people finding the show on a daily basis. So thank you for all the support. It really does mean the world to me. And like I said earlier, guys like Ty Mattingly are watching this show. I feel like I do not measure up in my mind to their ability to break down the game, but I do my best. So big thank you for all the support. All right, couple of notes real quick before we go on today's show. Congratulations to the number 8 ranked BYU women's soccer team. They crushed Oklahoma State 3-0 last night, snapping an 8-game win streak or home win streak for the Cowboys in the process, or the Cowgirls, I guess I should say in this circumstance. But a big win for BYU. Congratulations to them. Also, BYU women's volleyball. They're taking on Texas Tech tonight and tomorrow night. It's a back-to-back home set for BYU and Big 12 women's volleyball. Cougars ranked number 9 in the country. Looks like they should be able to get 2 wins over the weekend. Obviously, those will both be at the Smith Fieldhouse. 7 o'clock start on both of those. If you want to get out to the Smith Fieldhouse and watch them, you can do that. Also, men's cross country is in action today. Speaking of Friday, 11 a.m. Mountain Time at the Nuttycombe, Wisconsin Invitational, while the women's team is out in West Virginia. They're in Virginia at the University of Virginia for the cross country 23 pre-nationals meet. That'll be tomorrow morning, 8:30 on Saturday. And obviously BYU and TCU in football kicking off at 1:30 on ESPN. Huge platform for BYU. The whole thing about BYU being a vampire and needing to play night games to succeed. I said it earlier on today's show. I've got a good feeling about BYU. My score prediction, I'd say something like BYU 31, TCU 25, something like that. I think BYU can go get the win, folks. I really do. The other thing about this is if the run game's not running, if it's not working right out of the chute for BYU, well, why don't you just throw the ball to set up the run? You can do that philosophically. And I talked to Aaron Roddick. I asked him the question during media availability or this weekend. I'm talking about he said we have had to do that in games this year. Throw the ball to set up the run. Well, you know what? Embrace it. Just make it part of who you are. I know that BYU wants to be the hard-nosed physical football team who can jam it down people's throats. You know what? This may not be the year for that. So I've got a good feeling for BYU, and obviously we'll see how it all shakes out. But it should be a fun one tomorrow. I'll have a postcast edition for you tomorrow evening as soon as I finish my radio responsibilities hosting the BYU pre- and post-game show for the KSL Sports Zone. If you want to tune into that, we're on an hour ahead of the game, so that'll be at 12:30 Mountain Time. Check us out on 97.5 FM, 1280 AM. I'd love to hear from you guys. And also post-game, we'll be taking calls and the like. I'll be with Alex Keary of KSL, the KSL Sports Zone as well, co-hosting that program. Would love to have you guys tune in. And obviously, we'll have a postcast for you guys tomorrow evening with some of my thoughts more in depth of what I took away from the game. And we're off and rolling, folks. So fun to have BYU back at it and looking forward to the game tomorrow. And a big thank you once again for you guys' support of the podcast. Little longer edition today on the show. I had planned to split it up into 2 shows, but I just didn't have the time to split it into 2. So you know what? We're going to have an extra long Friday edition, and a big thank you all the same for your support of the podcast as always. Until tomorrow with the postcast edition, obviously. And if you don't check that out, we'll be back on Monday for sure. A big thank you for once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And thank you for being everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. See ya.